coming out of 2020 and into this new season of a little bit of uncertainty around like church attendance and church engagement, and people sort of shuffling around and finding new patterns and new routines of life. And I kind of feel as though like now, especially after launching yesterday, that like I've never been kind of more confident in our position to be able to begin to build again. Like our theme for this year is build, and we talked about building in a post-COVID landscape and exponential growth and all that sort of stuff. And to be honest with you, as the year began and the reality started to hit about what the rooms are looking like and what our reach is looking like and how things are coming together, I was a little bit like, can we really believe for this? And I just got a real sense yesterday that this is more than just possible. This will be what things look like in our future this year, but will be dependent upon that other part of the God factor that we talked about. Like the waves are coming, God's doing some amazing things, and the Spirit of God's moving in our world, and people are wanting to respond. And then there's our responsibility to step into what we've been called to do. And as leaders, we committed to going through this Leaderscape 2.0 journey, which is kind of unpacking just like the basics of church life and, connecting with people, building people. And we've been going through those every week this year. And this week, we're up to a session which they call something like helping people feel at home. I've changed the title. Helping people find home. That's what theirs is called, helping people find home. And I've kind of I've changed that title for us as Beyond Church, called Building a Bringing Culture. And I want to share this verse to you to anchor it. I've never read this verse in the Passion Translation before, and it's pretty cool. It says 2 Timothy 4 verse 5. It says, "So be alert to all these things and overcome every form of evil. Carry in your heart the passion of your calling as a church planter and evangelist, and fulfill your ministry calling." So Brian Simmons, I think the guy's name is, who did this translation, he's just whacked church planter in there. I thought, are you allowed to do that? And I mean, it's his translation, so I guess he can. But if like the explanatory notes that he's got around it are that evangelist, that word, which was kind of created anyway, there were the conjunction of those two Greek, and Kate can correct me if I'm wrong here, and Andrew, but it's a conjunction of two commonly used Greek words to make this almost a new Greek word, like this, the word evangelist, or how do you pronounce it, Andrew, in Greek?
You're going to test me here, but it'd be something like evangelon.
Yeah, evangelon, that's right. So that sounds right. That word just means someone who on one part of the word is like good news or good information. It's a deviation from the word angel, and on the other side is one who brings or to be brought. And so when you bringing good news, because that word in ancient Greek text at the time is pretty much exclusively just used in the New Testament manuscripts. It's hardly found anywhere else in any text of that era. And it's like some sort of say they just made a word up because they needed a word that described what it's like when like the good news is brought to someone by someone else, because that's a new thing. And so Brian Simmons is like, well, whenever that happened, a church got planted. No one just went to someone and said, hey, you're a Christian. Whenever these evangelists went somewhere, they actually started churches. It was the norm. That was the baseline. So I just got excited when I read that and thought, yeah, wow. So this is kind of like our norm as a Christian. What should be burning within us is this desire for others to find faith and community in new places to reach new people. So I've written a lot of other stuff about there. I got a bit distracted. But I say that to say that we're all called to be evangelists, like we're all called to be church planters. And this is a season I really feel like as a church that we do need to really lift that culture, that evangelistic potency within the life of the church, where we get stirred up again about our role and our part that we play in bringing people into that relationship with Jesus. And as a church, I'm excited because we are seeing people still say yes to Jesus. We're still seeing lives being turned around and transformed. We're going to be seeing a heap of people get water baptized on Easter Sunday this year. And so let's keep that momentum rolling. And I want to put, fuel onto the fire of that this afternoon, and just talk about what it looks like for our church to be the kind of church that continues to have a bringing culture and what that looks like. Because church planting is all about having that sense of bringing people into that faith community together, to be a part of what it's like to be a Jesus follower together. So the first thing, I've got a few things here. I've condensed the other talk that I listened to has had like 10 things. There's too many. And I've just condensed it down to these 5 things. The first one is bringing isn't inviting. Now, I'm not saying you can't use the word invitation. That's fine, but it is different. And I like this thought that bringing is different, because when you invite somebody to church, you leave all the spiritual warfare up to the invitee. And we have to be aware that whenever someone's on a journey toward connecting with community and faith and becoming a part of, a church community, that there's going to be a fight for that soul. And heaven has released us to be the ones who, go into spiritual warfare on behalf of our friends and family. And hell is fighting against those people to connect in with what God's got for their life. And so if we just say, oh, you should come to church, it starts at 9:30, 10 o'clock at Toronto, whatever. I mean, it's almost like you just set them up to fail, because sometimes it's hard for you to get to church, and you've been a Christian for 30 years. So how you expect someone who's like got a letter in the mailbox say, I'll see you at church on Sunday. It's not going to be that easy. So, but when we bring someone to church, we take on the burden, we take on the responsibility, and we are the ones who do all the heavy lifting when it comes to the spiritual warfare. And even sometimes the practicality, like, hey, I'll come and get you. I'll arrange for you to be there or whatever. And this challenged me as well. Like, I need to be a better bringer. And I'll talk about how we can all do that later. The second thing to build that culture of bringing is to empower our church to be confident to bring. And this speaks to just like everything, right? So what do I mean by empower our church to be confident to bring people? Bringing people into an experience, it's important that we are proud to be able to bring people into that room or into that meeting or into that gathering, that we'd be proud to share that with somebody else. And, if you feel cringy in a service, well, and you're leading, or you've got influence, or you can help to adjust or change that, and then we have to change that. We want to be able to be proud of the rooms and the environments that we're bringing our friends into. And is the message that we're hearing from the platform, and this is kind of, I guess, speaking mainly to people that are preaching, but is the message going to be relevant? Is it going to be helpful? Is it going to be inspirational? Like, is your neighbor who's not a Christian but is struggling at work, with their marriage, in their budget, when they come to church, are they going to walk away with something that's going to be helpful, supernaturally helpful, but speak to where they're at? Is the music, which is another big part of our services, is it going to be clear? Is it going to be powerful? Is it going to be inspirational? You don't want people to wonder whether or not they're kind of in a room where they should be twiddling their thumbs, listening to background music. We want them to know that this is a place where they are going to be immersed and engaged in something that they are a part of. This is worship, this is music, this is church singing together, although we can't yet, but it's a combination of not just being sung at from the platform, it's about sharing the experience of worship together with music. Is the community of church, is it generous? Is it hospitable? And I just love that Beyond Church is that. And that's why I'm excited about this season of being able to bring people to church, because I think we get so much of all that, like, so right, that we are famous for our generous hospitality. That I just cannot tell you how delicious the soup was yesterday. And I'll be very proud to bring my friends and family to come and share with us when we are so generous in that way. And having great people welcoming at the front of the building, and being so kind and generous even when there's problems and crisis and people are complaining, just being soft and gentle and kind and warm and welcoming. And I just think we do that really well. Let's not spend any more time on that. The third thing to build culture of bringing in the life of our church, I think this is actually really, really important, is to make bringing a supernatural imperative, not just a good idea. I heard that thought and thought, well, how could that look for Beyond Church? Because we don't want to have bringing people to church just something that you ask someone to do and they do it, or I ask you to do and you do it. It needs to be within our own lives personally, a spiritual imperative. And I thought what we could do that during this season of prayer and fasting is, as we're throwing out some suggestions of things to be praying for and fasting for and believing God for, we could include your friend or your family member who you've been believing to find Jesus for the last however long. That you could be praying and fasting for that person, and you could write their name down on that prayer and fasting card, and you could believe to see them in church this Easter. So just something like that. It's a spiritual imperative. It's not just a good idea. It's not just we want to have you in the room because we want a person in the room, but we're actually believing and praying for you. I'm spiritually engaged in that whole process. And I don't think people get too weirded out by that. I think people are okay if they know that you care for them, you love them, you're praying for them, you want to bring them to something where they're going to be encouraged and inspired. So it's spiritually imperative. Number 4, to build a bringing culture, this is really practical. It's to give bringing a short-term goal. Now, at Beyond Church, and those of you who are aware of how this works, we do have like measurable growth goals for people being in the room, people serving on team, life groups and all that sort of stuff. Like everything's got, we want to see it growing. So we know it's not going to move unless it's measured. And so we measure all that percentage-wise, and we measure year on year, month on month and all that sort of stuff. We look at trends. But what I thought this would be more helpful is if we just put some handles, make this really practical, where you guys and others in the life of our churches can have just a really short-term measurable goal to see like a real result. So what we could do, this for example, we could start by asking location leaders to set a goal for their life group leaders or their youth leader or themselves to bring like 5 guests to church between now and Easter. And it's a short, so it's got nothing to do with long-term, year-on-year, month-on-month percentage growth. It's got nothing to do with that. It will impact that, but it's just, let's just do something that we can actually see. Like, who are the 5 people in my life that I've been praying and thinking about bringing along to a church service? And let's just set myself a goal for the next 4 weeks to bring, 5 people. And that's it. That's it. That's the goal. Nothing bigger than that. Just a simple, clear, basic goal. Have Amy, let's see if you can personally, bring 5 additional people or young people to youth, for example. I'm not saying that's what we have to do, but I'm just saying that will help to build a culture of bringing, if it's a clear, measurable goal. Now, that might mean that you and I have to think about who that might be. We might need to pray about that. We might need to make a new friend. We might need to go to a new cafe and meet a new wait staff, and we might need to revisit old friends that might have said no to coming to church before with us. And I want to say this too, that we've got to be okay to just fail and get that wrong. Like, we can't be afraid to set an ambitious goal because we don't think we can get there. Like, let's not have that fear of risk and fear of failure in our mindset. Let's just be okay with setting an audacious goal and going for it. And if it fails, be okay with that, because unless we set the goal and work towards it, we won't achieve it. But if we set it, we work towards it, we might get something, and we're going to get more doing that than we are being too afraid to go for it because we're too afraid to fail. So, short-term goal for bringing. So I reckon we could do that. I'm already thinking about that between now and Easter, and the people that I'd like to be re-bringing to church and adjusting the way that I do it. And anyway, we can talk a bit more about that later. And finally, this is what I'm really excited about, because I think, again, we do this well, and I reckon we could ramp this up between now and Easter, is that building a culture of bringing is all about rewarding it, because if it's what we reward is repeated. Rewarding it will repeat it. Rewarding it will repeat it. I was going to talk about my children, because when we reward them, do they repeat their behavior? Sometimes they just take the reward and don't realize why they got given it, and they aren't. Zara. All right. Rewarding it, we'll repeat it. So let's keep on sharing stories of transformed lives. It's why good reports are so powerful, like hearing stories about, Chloe, the first student of the academy, and getting water baptized on Easter Sunday, and how that was an invitation. That was her, being brought and kept and developed into the life of the church through the academy. And, Richard's on fire for God, and that whole family dynamic being transformed. That's a powerful story, because we were the evangelists. We were the church planter. We went out there, and we've been able to bring people into the life of the church, and we're seeing lives transformed. And we don't need to wait for a really amazing video to be made to tell the story of these transformed lives. And I've been guilty of this in the past. You know, we've had a whole lot of people whose lives have been transformed, and I've been like, oh, let's make a video about that and show it to the church. And I think, well, hang on a minute, like we could just tell people, we could just include it in part of what our MC spot is when we're talking about prayer and fasting every week this week, or when we talk every week over the next few weeks, when we're talking about people's next steps. And it was so good to, you know, if we could ask permission. We're not just going to drop people into the service without making sure they're okay to, you know, just have their name, you know, mentioned. But, you know, just mentioning that, oh, you know, so-and-so, it's been so good to see that they've been a part of our church and they've been taking next steps, and, you know, they're in this, you know, they're doing the mentoring program now. And it's a short little thing, but what it does, it celebrates and it tells the story of the power of bringing someone into a transforming encounter with Jesus through the local church. So I'd be encouraging us as a church to be, for those of us who have the opportunity, you know, from the platform, for those of us who are sharing and leading life groups in that space, for those of us who are having conversations in our team meetings, share stories there, just with each other in, you know, our community time together in church, just sharing the amazing transformational power that we've seen at work in people's lives. That reminds people of the power of bringing people to church. And then finally, celebrate those people who naturally bring people to church, because we've got some people in the life of Beyond Church who just bring people to church. It's just like, it's their gift, and it's not everybody's gift, and that's fine. But if it's someone's gift, it does two things. One, it encourages the person with the gift to keep doing the great thing that they're doing, but it also inspires people who want to bring their friends to church to have a go and to be brave and to know that it works, and to try it even if they've never tried it before, or try it again if it didn't work before. So celebrate the bringers. And again, you know, that's something that we can do in our team meetings, and we can do it just over coffee. Oh, it's amazing how you brought so-and-so to church. You know, it's so good to see that, you're just moving in what God's given, put on your life, and all that sort of stuff. So you guys are leaders, you carry culture. And if we reward, you know, and celebrate those that are bringers, that carries, and that people get a sense of, yeah, this is what we're about. And the same thing with, you know, those short-term goals. If you've set them for yourself and you're talking about them with others, that's going to inspire others. You know, making it a spiritual imperative for your own life, that's going to inspire others to see it as an imperative for their life. Empowering people, empowering our church with our services to be excellent, so our church are confident to bring, and we all play a part in that. And let's keep doing that, because I know that we do that well. And let's take all the heavy lifting off those people we're inviting by bringing people, not just inviting people. You know, do as much of the work that we can do, and take as much responsibility off them as we can. And I think that this season, between now and Easter, I'm really excited about the potential for growth across all locations. I just think that you're in just such a healthy position. You know, Scone online in Toronto yesterday, and seeing the stats for Cessnock. I mean, and hearing Kate's good report about how there's the culture is strong and the culture is carried really well. I mean, I've just never been so confident about the platform that we have right now to start bringing people into this environment, and just seeing more and more people's lives transformed into this coming Easter season. So yeah, I think we're positioned really, really well. I'm really excited about the future. Bringing is going to be a big part of it, and be bold, be brave. Let's do it ourselves, and let's encourage those in our world that we're leading to be doing it as well. All right. So thus concludeth the challenge. You guys are awesome.